Hello and welcome to episode 4 of my mindset tips. Now, if this is the first time that you've seen one of my videos, I highly recommend watching the mindset tips introduction, but it's not completely necessary. All of the tips are individual. This is not a sports psychology course, so you don't have to have seen the previous ones, but of course I recommend that you do that. They are focused for performance. They're not particularly focused on squash, even though my channel is all about squash. They can be used for other racket sports, tennis, badminton, paddle, table tennis, front on, whatever you want to do, but they can also be used for any other type of performance. They will help you in all ways. These ones are tips 13 to 16. Here's the branding. Tip number 13 is set SMART objectives. Now let's analyze what a SMART objective is. Well, first, S stands for specific. Make sure that it is something very clear and defined. Don't say, I'm going to get better at squash. That's just too vague. Imagine that you can hit 10 shots in a row into the service box, front wall on your own. Front wall, service box, front wall, service box. You can hit 10 of them. Well, specific would be, I'm going to hit 20. That's a very specific number. The more specific you can be with your objectives, the more likely you are to achieve them. M. M is measurable. In this case, we've set 20. We can count 20. Going back to our vague goal, I'm going to get better. How do you define better? Well, that's just too vague. That's why it's not a good objective. So make sure that you can measure your goal in a clear, objective way. Not just you saying, yeah, I think I'm better. No. How can you measure it in a clear way that everybody can see is a proper way of measuring? A is attainable. Don't say, yeah, I've been playing squash for 6 months. Next year I'm going to be world champion. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. If it does happen, message me and I'm just going to be so amazed. Make sure that it's something that you can do. So if you do 10 shots in a row, 20 is attainable. Don't say I'm going to do 100. I mean, maybe eventually, but that's too far away. You want something that you can do. Don't say, yeah, I climbed my local hill. Next year I'm going to climb Everest. It's just not going to happen. Make sure it's attainable. Make sure you can do it. Now, R, if you look on the internet, often R is described as realistic. And I don't think that that's a good word to use because attainable and realistic are the same to me. A better word to use is relevant. Make sure it is something relevant to what your overall objectives would be. If your overall objective would be to play the best squash, climbing a mountain might not be particularly relevant. It might be because it's quite good, it's great work for your legs and it's a fitness workout. But doing something else that's not relevant to your overall objectives, that's a waste of time. So make sure it's relevant, and the box shot is a good example. That would be very relevant to playing better squash. So relevant. And the last one is T, time-based. You must have a time that you're going to do it, whether it's a time period, I'm going to spend 1 hour doing this objective and I've got to do it within that hour, or it's a date or a time. I must do 20 shots in a box before the end of March, before the beginning of January, some particular time, because if you don't, then there's no impetus for you to work hard. If you say, yeah, at some point in the future, some point, I'm going to hit 20 shots in a box. Well, there's no reason for you to wake up early one morning and go to the squash courts. There's no reason for you to do your visualization, to see yourself hitting those shots. You need a time. So, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. That style of goal setting, and there are other ways of setting goals, that style of goal setting will help you with the most realistic opportunity of actually achieving them. And at other times we'll talk about other ways of setting goals and different types of goals, but that will get you started. Now, I can't set your goals for you, but I can help guide you. So if you've got some ideas, you can post them in the comments, and I'll see if we can work together to manipulate them, to change them so that they are SMART based and that they give you something very specific to work on. Tip number 14 is learn to use deep breathing techniques and use them. Now, when it comes to breathing, unless you've been on any yoga courses or any sort of meditation courses, the chances are you might be sitting there saying, this is stupid because everybody breathes. What do I need to learn to breathe for? But most people breathe very badly. Most people think that when you want to breathe deeply, you breathe through your chest. You don't. You breathe through your stomach. So that's the first thing that you'd need to learn, that this area is where you breathe deeply. You ever want to see how to breathe, just watch a baby. You never see a baby moving their chest, the baby moves their stomach. I'm not going to teach you now how to deep breathe, but when you are nervous, when you are stressed, when you are overexcited, and that can happen in a game as well, if you can breathe very deeply, you can calm yourself, or at least you can begin to calm yourself. Being able to stay focused, being able to stay in the moment and know what you need to do, not thinking about other things, is very important. And breathing deeply is important. A lot of people suffer from nerves before matches, and it inhibits their ability to play their best. People talk about butterflies in the stomach, and somebody once said the key is not to get rid of the butterflies, the key is to get all of the butterflies flying in the same direction. And that's what deep breathing will do. It will reduce the stress, but it will keep you focused on what you're doing. There's plenty of videos available to learn how to do that. Go and watch the YouTube experts. They will teach you how to do it, and it's not something that takes a long time. 5 minutes before your match, you can sit somewhere quietly, close your eyes, in through your nose, hold for a moment, out through your lips. Slowly, you will calm down. Learn some other techniques and use them. They're so useful. Tip number 15. Perseverance might be more important than talent or ability. The mindset of continuing when the work is hard, never giving up, never stopping, is possibly more important. There's no point having incredible natural ability. You can hit nicks from anywhere, you can retrieve any shot, you can hit super tight shots. But when the going gets tough, that's the phrase in English, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, meaning when the situation becomes difficult, the people who are the strongest mentally, that's when they really become more powerful. Even if you have the natural ability, if you don't work hard, if you stop trying when the match becomes difficult because you're not playing your best, you're never going to reach your potential. And I've seen plenty of players who were average, but they had the mindset of never giving up. And they beat a lot of other players. They beat a lot of other players because when those players with natural ability saw these people just retrieving all of the balls, never giving up, keeping working, it kind of broke them mentally. And those kind of people with that perseverance are very mentally strong, and they get better. You can get better, but developing perseverance can be quite hard compared to developing skills. So if you've got that as your basic mindset, it can be really, really useful. Think of Rocky Balboa, from the movies. Okay, he's a fictional character, but he wasn't necessarily the most talented, but he just kept going. And there are other people. Now, I'd like to talk about Rafa Nadal. Now, I'm not saying he's not naturally talented. I'm just saying that one of his mindsets, you knew he was never going to give up. He could be 5-love down and 40-love down in the third set and 2 sets to love down. But you knew that he was going to fight every single point. And that is a really important thing. Develop a perseverance mindset, and people will be scared of you. Tip number 16 is listen very carefully to all of the sounds during the knock-up. It will help you focus. Sound is a completely underrated sensation when it comes to memories and situations. you may know that I took a break from squash for 13 years. Didn't play, didn't train, didn't do anything to do with squash for 13 years. And you know what I miss the most? The sound of the ball hitting the wall, specifically on a glass court, because I love that sound, but also on a regular court. The sound was, to me, one of the greatest things about squash. It's one of the things I love. That ball hitting that wall is just fantastic. Now, when you're on court, and if you are nervous, and if you think back to tip 14 about breathing deeply, another thing that can help you is listening. It means that you're putting more of your attention into what you're doing. You're not thinking about winning or losing, because that's a bad thing. You're not thinking about what happened at school or at work or somewhere else. You're not thinking about what the guys are talking about in the bar because you heard them saying, oh, this team's going to lose or that guy's going to... No, you're not thinking about anything. You're focused on the sound of your opponent's feet as the shoes scrape along the floor, that squeaking sound. When you hit the ball, the sound that it makes when it hits your strings, when it hits the front wall. All of those sounds will help you focus on the here and now. It's a kind of mindfulness exercise, but it will help you focus on what's happening now, which is what mindfulness is. Being in the moment. Now, I will be making another video about sound later, but this is just to get the idea of listen carefully during the knock-up, because it will help you focus. All right, so that was episode 4 of the Mindset Tips, 13 to 16. Set SMART goals, learn deep breathing, perseverance is maybe more important than talent, and listen carefully during the knock-up. I hope those were useful for you. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly and precisely as possible. On the screen at the moment is a subscription button. If and only if you think my content is useful, please consider subscribing. There is a playlist of all of the other mindset tips and a video that YouTube thinks will be interesting for you based on what you've been watching recently. And remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya.